In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to turn your simple T-Rex into a more advanced version like this. The first thing we're going to do is to make the simpler T-Rex out of some foil paper. So make that T-Rex first and then come back for the rest of this video. Okay, so here's our basic T-Rex, and we want to turn it into something more 3D like this one here. So as a general principle, we want extremities, sort of long limbs, to be relatively large as flaps, because as we shape them and do things to add details, we're going to lose some of that flap length, whereas distances between flaps, such as the gap separating the back legs from the arms, relatively speaking, this distance needs to be a bit shorter. We're going to do that by adjusting some of our previous folds. So if I open up the model slightly by bringing the far half away from us, we can see this is the distance that we need to shorten, and we can tuck away some of this paper. In fact, we're going to do quite a substantial amount. If I move the corners here at the top of the arms all the way underneath with a mountain fold, this is about where we're going to want the paper to be, and a similar amount on the other side. And there's also layers connected underneath here, which we're going to want to adjust. So we can firstly do that by lifting up all of these layers with the legs and front arms and folding over again a bit more paper. And that actually made the tail a bit longer, but again, relatively speaking, we want this to be shorter, so we're going to tuck away quite a bit more of the paper at the tail by folding it back toward the legs and folding it with a lot shorter distance than before. We'll close the paper up again. And finally for the head, we want some of these layers out of the way. For the time being, just going to unfold that all the way back to the right. Okay, so what that's done is it's given us slightly more paper to work with here. If you look, I can fold this corner up quite a bit further before it starts interfering with the other parts of the paper. And the first thing is we're going to want to stop it linking up with the paper on the forearm. So underneath here, we'll just perform a bit of a swivel fold, getting this part of the edge to become vertical. And all the rest of the paper we can tuck underneath out of the way. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. I want to lift up this point, getting as far as it will go, and bring all these edges this time so they are approximately vertical along these right edges that we just folded. And the same behind as well. Okay, now there's a limit to what we can do in terms of separating everything completely. We don't have a huge amount of length here still. So to make the most of it, we're going to suggest around here, when we start having the freedom to move the paper a bit more, this will be about where the knee of the T-Rex will be. And we'll bend the paper backwards with a rabbit ear. So all of this paper here we can do a mountain fold at an angle and the rabbit ear with the centre of these three mountains roughly at the front where these three lines converge. And we can fold it down, and then to make a foot, we'll simply bend some of the paper forwards again. So this is something like what we want to go for the leg. We'll do that again on the other side. Then fold the paper downwards and finally bring the corner forwards to make the foot. The nice thing about shaping is you can adjust any of these things later, so if you aren't satisfied with them, that's not a problem at all. Usually it helps to wait until you've got a rough idea of what the whole figure is looking like before we spend too much time on one particular aspect, so we'll leave those back legs where they are for the time being. Alright, let's work on the front legs. So we want to fold the paper down. We have the existing fold line from before, but you want to use a little bit less paper for these front legs to make them a bit smaller relative to these back ones. And something we can do here is to actually reverse, using an outside reverse fold, so all of this paper comes actually around the front, like this, and then we'll do another outside reverse fold to make a sort of elbow shape, and another outside reverse fold to make the hand. Now this still gives us quite a thick bit of paper here for the sort of bicep of the T-Rex, so we can thin that by pushing the paper a little bit inside, and we also get some of this raw edge, which is perhaps a little bit ugly, so we can mount and fold some of that away. And the same again on this smaller part of the arm. Finally, I'll mount and fold this part behind so you can't see any of the raw edge here at the top. Okay, so an arm something like this. Again, we'll do the same on the other side as well. So we'll fold the paper down at an angle, use an outside reverse fold to bring it around, another outside reverse fold to bring it forwards, and a final one to bring the hand down at the front. We'll thin this sort of bicep part here. Just a bit of a mount and fold there to fold it behind. Can make the raw edge go away by tucking over a very thin sliver of it here, and a bit at the top, and a little bit on the forearm. And to make this part of the forearm thinner, I'm just going to mount and fold that as well. So that gives us another little arm. Okay, so it's looking a bit more T-Rexy. Now we'll work on the head. So for the head, we wanted to make the other parts of the paper come a bit closer together, so that relatively speaking, the limbs are a bit longer. That means we actually end up with relatively a slightly longer flap at the head, which means we've got enough paper to make a bit of a jaw. So let's completely unfold that paper, and this tip will be the lower jaw, and we're actually going to work backwards from the tip in. So we'll start by folding the lower jaw forwards, and this will be part of the upper jaw. These are existing creases from the previous way we folded the T-Rex. But given we're making something a bit more 3D, we actually want to make the head a bit more round rather than making it flat like before. So we're going to do some steps to make sort of nostrils of the T-Rex. So if you imagine a flat top for the head coming to 2 points on either side of the centre, 1 and 2, then we can make the top flat, this portion lying vertical, and the sides we can fold down, and if we keep this crease folded, we can actually make a new vertex in 3D with a bit of a nostril, and the same thing on the other side as well. And to lock that in place a bit better, we can mount and fold some of the paper to make it continues down and mounting from the nostril vertically down, and same on this side. Then if we mount and fold all of this paper, including a little bit of the edge here, to make the lock a little bit stronger. Then all of this flap will be tucked away underneath, and this will come forwards to be the jaw. So that will be like the end of the T-Rex face there. Okay. For the back part of the head, we want, if you imagine continuing these lines as mountains, like I said, we can't add new features, but we can suggest using the shape of the paper. So the eyes would be kind of more towards the back of the head, and if we curve the paper down at an angle, we'll find that we can get an indented region, which will be like the side of the head here. Try and mirror this on the other side as well. It can help to look at the paper from multiple angles. And we want the head to be a little bit closer to the body, so we'll refold a bit of that outside reverse fold from before using the existing creases, and this time, rather than having a spine that's very sharp and folded, we'll flatten the paper at the base of that fold. And behind the neck here, and that will give us slightly more, well, a much more 3D shape than before. Be careful not to lose that lower jaw. This. And now we have a rough shape for most of the model. We'll flatten out the back so it's more curved. And all of this paper that we got here at the front, we don't really want, so we can mount and fold this underneath out of the way as well. Any excess paper that you don't want is easy to get rid of. It's always easy to remove paper, it's just hard to add new parts. So we can fold that away and fold this away as well. Okay, we are nearly done. The last thing to work on is the tail. Now the tail is one of the more tricky parts. So it was very flat and we added a little bend beforehand. We want to make a more 3D tail shape, and this is going to introduce a classic method for when you've got a cone or a cylinder and you want to introduce a 3D element to it rather than just squashing it and then folding it. Instead, bending it in a way that maintains that 3D shape. So to help us with that, I've actually got a little model just to show us an example of the kind of thing we're aiming for. So this is a bit like a cone. It's partially conical, though with a bit of a gap at the bottom, just like our tail will be underneath the T-Rex. And here it's bending around to the right. And this shows the sorts of folds we want to make. So we have two folds. We have a valley fold, and this goes horizontally, perpendicular to the spine. Note how it's stopping a little bit past the spine on the left side. And on the right side we have this curve that comes upwards as a mountain fold. And don't worry too much about past this point, but the main thing is it's going to be moving towards the main part of the body at an angle with a slight curve perhaps as we move to the other side of the paper. So what does that look like on our T-Rex? We'll make a valley fold starting from a point on the left side of the spine. All the way to the right, and then on this right section we'll make a mountain fold. It does start just above, just where we started that valley fold, and it moves in a sort of curved shape over to the right. And this will be a sort of pleat. So we'll fold this underneath, and this will bend the tail over to the right. When it's roughly in place, you can curve the paper so that everything's a bit more conical. The hardest point is this vertex where you have very much a point sticking towards you. You can make that a little bit smoother by making more of a curve underneath here as well. So that's one bend in the tail, and it should be much more 3D than before. So we'll do one more of those to the right, and then we'll bring the paper back to the left again, so the tail has a bit of a swish to it. So another horizontal fold. A bit further down, that's our valley, and then a mountain just above it. Like this, and then we'll bring the paper back to the left by doing the mirror image of that. So this time we'll start just to the right of the spine with a valley fold and a mountain fold just above it. And one more time. a valley fold with a mountain just above it. So that gives the tail a 3D bend, wiggling down like this. So once you've got the rough shape like this, then you can start to mould it and make the curves a bit smoother. You can put the finger underneath to round them off a bit more. And to lock some of that in place, you can fold this back portion underneath with some of the tail as well. And the same on this side as well. Alright, final thing, let's see if it will stand up, if we're very lucky. There we go, our finished T-Rex.